In the last video, we basically saw the concept of inverses, where we're now treating the outputs as the independent variable and the inputs as the dependent variable. So in other words, we're really just switching the inputs and outputs, and we're sort of seeing things in a totally different perspective. Let's actually put this into practice and see how this would work, say, for example, if I gave you a function. So the strategy, so let me just write that down. The strategy, strategy for basically finding the inverse. Finding the inverse. And here we'll do basically a graphical approach. A graphical approach. Okay. So say for example I have some function. I have some function, and it sort of looks like this. There we go. And let's say I have one point right there, and that's -2, and I'm going to have another point that's 2 over there. Then let's say I have another point at 3 and 4, so 1, 2, 3, so 3. Let's say that's 2, so 2, 4. So I have another point right there. Okay, and let's say I have one more point at 5 and so 5, 6. So I have another point at 5 and 7. So this is 5, and that's 7. So basically that point is right there. So actually maybe if I use different colors, that would help. So I got one there, I got one there, and I got one there. Okay. So let's say I had a function and I just connected these 3 dots right there, and this is my f of x. Okay. This is my f of x. Now the question is, how do I basically graphically sort of find the inverse? And in order to find the inverse, actually first of all, let me just give you some notation. The notation for the inverse is f inverse of x. So we have that -1 sort of as the superscript. So if you want to ever find the inverse, basically this is the same thing. So these two are the same thing. So the inverse is really f inverse of x. So how do we do that? Now basically, remember what we said was that when the inverse is really just switching the perspective. So the inputs become the outputs and the outputs become the inputs. So really what we're doing is we are basically switching the x and the y values. All right. So let's get a list of values. So let's just get a list of values and see how that works. So so the list of values here is -2, -2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, and 5 and 7. 5 and 7. Okay. So if we do the inverse, and if we basically switch the inputs and the outputs, really what we're doing is just we're switching x and y. So instead of -2, 2, we really have 2 and -2. We have 4 and 3, and then we have 7 and 5. Okay? So really this, if I apply a transformation of the inverse, okay, these are the new set of data points that I should get, where all I'm doing is merely switching the x and y, and that's how I get my inverse function. So let's plot this inverse function over here. So if we have 2 and -2, let me get, I just need to extend a line for a second. Oops, let me just do that. Oh, there we go. So I'm just going to extend this line just a little bit. No, that's not right. Let me just extend it just a little bit here. There we go. So let me go here. And okay, so here. So if I want to plot this, this is now going to be 2, -2. So -2. So 2, -2. So this point is 2, -2, which is right there. Okay. 4, 3. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 3 is somewhere here. Okay. 4, 3 is somewhere here, and 7, 5, which will be 2 more points here. So 6, 7. This is 7, and 7, 5 is right here. 7, 5. So now, basically, if I connect the dots this way, that's basically how I'm going to get my inverse function. So in the, sorry, just one second. So in the so this is basically what my inverse function looks like. And I know it's not the smoothest curve, but if this is my function, if I'm switching the inputs and outputs, this is what the inverse function would look like with respect to the original function. All right. So this is a graphical approach, basically using points and merely switching the x and y in order to find in order to plot the inverse function, and yeah, basically in order to plot the inverse function. All right, so in the next video, what I'm going to show you is how to do this basically with equations and stuff. How do we do this through equations, and also find the inverse that way.